Behind every brand, every movement, every leader, every transformation, there's a story. And intertwined in these stories is a message. And this podcast is for you, the next gen leader, coach, entrepreneur, and influencer. My name is Travis Brady, and I'm a branding mentor and sales story strategist. I hope you see me more of a guide than a host as I share the stories behind the brands, so you can take these stories, experiences, principles, and teachings and use them to share your story with the world. What is up, brand leaders? We are back for another podcast, The Story Behind the Brand. We got Steve Reich, and he's going to teach you how to be rich today. He was the youngest VP of a $2.5 billion grocery supplier, had 688 stores. Back in 2011, started a marketing department called Our Marketing Department. I like that. I would love to hear a little bit more about the story behind that. Currently has 25 employees, and we're going to be talking about creative marketing today, because marketing is everything. It's the blood of your business. You know, if there's one thing you want to get really good at in life that can help you have an incredible life, it's marketing. You know, I think a lot of people absolutely underestimate how much work they need to put into that. So I'm excited for this conversation. Steve, fill in the gaps a little bit more about you.
Yeah, no, I've been around for a little while. Like I said, I worked for that grocery company for a lot of years, and it was although we had corporately owned stores, we also worked with a lot of independently owned. And so even some of the first stores I worked with, you know, my assignment was to increase their profitability and their sales, and a lot of them didn't have hardly any money to do it with. And so we had to do more guerrilla style. We had to think creative, and you know, and some of the things we did worked and turned into a lot of business. And that's kind of what got me the reputation where I'd go around and teach other companies across the country how to do it. But a lot of it had to do with just making that emotional connection with the customers. In a big city, you might not see a big thing about a store having a like a 50s event or something like that. But in a little rural town, you know, when you have people out having a hula hoop contest and things going on, people come out and they stay all day, and they're really part of it. And that type of stuff really works. We still are emotional people. Almost all the decisions we make, even though we try to justify them with logic, are emotion based.
Yeah, I did. We're doing a speaker competition for Brand X. I know we were talking about that the other day, and you know, that's one of the first concepts I talked about. You know, you got to understand the hardwiring of people. You know, we're not logical beings. You know, we're emotional driven, you know, animals, which is why we probably love dogs so much. We love the animal nature, you know, of them, because we in ourselves are animals, you know, in a way. So what really drove you to marketing? Why marketing out of everything that you went into?
You know, actually, I like any other kid, I grew up working in grocery stores. Just, you know, I always thought that it was just a job while I'm in high school. Well, I started when I was 14. Back then, the child labor laws were a lot reduced. But yeah, I was driving a forklift and all that at 14, and all that stuff you can't do nowadays. But yeah, I started there, and I worked for independents. I could see little things that we do that would change, you know, our profitability. Just little things. You just get everybody spend $1 more if it comes in, you know, that's 20 grand a month or a week more, little things like that. And so as I got done with college, I got asked I first worked for a brokerage where I worked with Gatorade and a few places like that, marketing their stuff, but still calling on grocery stores. And I always thought I'd get away from the grocery store thing, but real quick, some of the biggest grocery place I called on, you know, came after me and wanted me to come work for them. And that's kind of where I first shined. And like I say, it was kind of funny, after the stores I was working with were doing great. I was only like 23 at the time, but the CEO came down and said, I'm going to shake things up. The things you're doing are incredible. I'm making you my vice president of marketing. And, you know, at that time I had lots of people that were older than me and been at the company a lot longer. But just jumped in and did it. And yeah, it really turned out to be something that I just love, that idea of helping people make more money, make more profit, and just by making a better connection.
I love it. I very rarely meet people that have more stuff on the back wall than me. You got a lot of cool stuff back there. What's your favorite item?
Here's one thing that's funny is you'll see I got a lot of Bigfoot Sasquatch back there. Uh,
Yeah.
and all that is I had a friend of mine. He unfortunately passed away during COVID, but he was
Mhm.
like one of the guys that would interview people that said they seen Bigfoot for the Bigfoot Research Organization. And he would go to Lake Powell with us every year. So I'd ask him all these questions about it because I loved hearing all the stories. And I've never had my own experience or anything like that, but I loved hearing his stories. And so a few people would see that on here and they'd see like he'd give me a couple of these little figurines or whatever, and I had them sitting in here. People would see him, and then next thing they'd come, they'd want to tell me their story, and they'd give me another one. And at one point, I had to take them down. I had like 15 Bigfoot up there, but yeah. So I have I don't have my own experience or anything like that.
Yeah,
I,
it seems to be a Mormon folktale is
yeah, yeah,
and everything. And I heard and I don't know the truth of it. I heard there was some guys that were dressing up as Bigfoot and would
yeah.
go put the Bigfoot in the mud and and everything. And I've seen some I don't know if they're called X-Files now or that show some of the things. So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I've looked and seen a bunch of those too. So that's anyway, that's some of the fun stuff that's up there. But just a bunch of other things. I'm a space junkie, NASA stuff. I love all that. And so and then I read a lot of books. So,
Nice.
but yeah,
Nice. So one of my favorite questions to ask people is, what is your definition of marketing?
yeah, making an emotional connection with people. That it definitely. I mean, I wish I had it all, uh, written out in some nice saying. But basically,
Mhm.
how can you make an emotional connection with people? Because that's where the trust is. That's where the people come back. Um, and usually, we all talk about word of mouth marketing. All that has to come from people feeling good about what the experience they've had. All that's got to build from there.
Mhm.
I taught a class yesterday, actually on word of mouth marketing. And one of the cool things that you find is everybody wants word of mouth marketing and they want it to grow that way. They think that's the best, but only about 2% of companies in the country have a word of mouth plan. Now, part of that, it's not just because they're lazy. Part of that is because some people say, if I have a word of mouth plan, is it, does it lack sincerity? Because what am I doing? And I'm trying to manipulate people to do it. And I think if you're trying to manipulate, you've got it all wrong anyway. Throw that out. But it is great to have a plan to say, okay, what can I do that provides what people want to talk about their experience they had with us? What can I do to make things better? One of the things I'll tell you real quick is when one of my boys graduated from high school, we took him out to eat at it was McGrath's Fish House, and we got there, we ordered, we talked, we were laughing, we were having fun. We realized after a little while that our food hadn't come, like about 50 minutes. And then all of a sudden, I'd look in what I found out later was the manager's beelining from the back room to our table. And he says, I am so sorry. Here's what happened. Your waiter took your order. He dropped it on the floor, um, slipped out the back door. We haven't seen him. But here's what we're going to do to fix it. And he had a couple other waiters behind him. They put all the appetizers on our table. And he said, these two guys are going to stay out here, make sure your drinks stay full. He pointed at my son and said, you look like you could use a shrimp cocktail. My son said, yeah. He said, get him a shrimp cocktail. He said, by the way, tonight, guys, dinner's on us. We want to make sure you're happy. And it was just this great experience, right? And so I bragged about it. In fact, I've been bragging about it for a decade now, and the house is gone now. They're gone. However, I got thinking about it right after, is if they'd done a good job with no problem, I probably wouldn't have remembered to shout him out or said anything about him. I would have shouted out my son because I was proud of him and that. But here, a lot of times people think, hey, let's hide our mistakes. And instead, one of the best ways to get more word of mouth is to say, okay, we're human. There's going to be some mistakes. Yeah, we want to have as few as possible. But when we do, we've got a premeditated plan of how we're going to solve that in an extraordinary way. Because, you've asked anybody who has the best customer service, nobody's going to say so and so because I've never had a problem. Everybody's
Yeah.
going to bring up a problem that was solved in extraordinary fashion. And so one of the things that we work with is with people on their word of mouth is, okay, you're doing all these things here. You got them all in place. Does your whole team know that a problem comes? Here's how they solve it. Here's what they do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in your best interest to take care of people inside of your business,
Yeah,
especially if it's a results based,
yeah,
our role is, do whatever we can to make the client happy, you know what I mean? And sometimes that requires putting in more work and coming out of more of your pocket. And I tell my team, you're going to have some of those difficult clients that you're going to still go above and beyond, and they're just going to be okay satisfied, you know what
right.
I mean? But then you're going to have those clients that are just really easy, and
Yeah,
anything you give them, they're going to be happy with, you know what I mean? And I would say they cancel each other out, you know what I mean?
right,
Like, but I
right.
would say your difficult clients, you know, they teach you something about your processes. And if you're willing to look at it, which is really hard sometimes because, we're in business because we love what we do. But if you look at those, you could actually learn a lot through the process. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Referral is, we do events. We've been doing events for 9 years. You ask people, okay, where do you get most of your clients from? And everyone says referrals, but yet no one really has a calculated
yeah.
game plan on how to create referrals. What's your game plan? How do you help your clients get more referrals if that's the top of everyone's business?
Man, I'm so glad you asked that because that's really a hot button with me right now. Is I work with all different types of companies. It can be like a roofer or HVAC, could be a chiropractor, could be all different kinds. But what I find is most often there's usually between 6 to 8 people that give each company about 70 to 80% of their referrals.
Hmm.
And and it's because they're maybe in the position to refer, they're whatever they're doing is industry collates or whatever. But people forget about that, and they to me, I like to separate those people aside because it's only 6 or 8 people. So if you remember to thank them regularly, if you remember to show your appreciation, but then also feed them little tidbits because they can love you, but they can forget about you after 6, 8 months. But if you're
Yeah.
feeding them just little, and again, it can't be a novel, it can't be a whole bunch of stuff, but just little snack sized tidbits of what you're doing that gives them something to share, you can increase those. And then if you even just try to get like even 2 more of those, all of a sudden you think what that could do to your business. And so we work with how to get all of your past clients to give you referrals. But
Hmm.
I first say, okay, these strategic referral partners is what I call them. There's usually 10 people or less. And those 10 people are giving you so much. If you can find somebody else that fits that category, that's in that position, you can increase your business really quick by just adding 1 or 2 great referral partners. And then we come back and talk about one of the other things that I talk about. And sorry, this is a hair of a story, but when I was that vice president at there, I was young, and obviously when you're young like that, there's people that are second guessing you and wondering where you're at. So I wanted to be the best I could be. So I kind of looked to see what I could do to to be the best, vice president. And I thought, our CEO is very well known. He's a great guy and he's accomplished a lot. Even though he's way better known than me, I'm going to be kind of a number 2 to him. I'm going to be wherever I can. I'm going to talk about the things he's accomplished, the things, and then I'm going to back him up. And luckily, he was the type of leader that even when he made a decision with the team of, hey, we're going to buy these areas, but it means we've got to lay off this, he would run it by us as vice presidents first, and we would get the buy-in. And if we didn't buy in, sometimes he'd put off announcing it until we talked about it further. But what I thought about is being number 2, like if we'd go meet with, say, Procter and Gamble or Kraft or somebody like that, I would always go in like 10 minutes early, and I would like show like double the respect. Hey, can we make sure he's got some water? He got a piece of paper, and I'd kind of talk like that. But then I'd also say, hey, I'd tell some story of something he accomplished. So when he walked into the room, he was already a hero. And even though we were a big company, we were still Utah based, and sometimes that can look podunk. And I wanted to get there, but we'd get more money and we'd get more support out of these huge manufacturers because of that. And so then when I first left there, I went to my like first BNI. I didn't know. I always tell people I couldn't even spell BNI. I didn't know what it was about really. But there's all these guys that had questions. I wish I knew this guy to do marketing with this. And I'm like, I know that guy very well. He's a great friend. I thought I could help all these guys, but I also didn't want to come across like a cocky jerk. And I thought, you know what? I wish I had like a vice president that could go ahead of me and say, hey, this is what Steve's about. He'll give you anything that he wants. If he tells you that he's going to give it to you, he's not charging you. He's just going to give it to you. And
Yeah.
and then I looked around the room and I thought, every one of these people could use one of those. And so I thought at the time, I thought, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start being a number two, because one of the hardest things to do is if you need to convince people or tell people that you're honest, right? Anywhere you try to talk about your own honesty, it sounds dishonest. So that's something that I could do for other people that I know are honest. I could stand up and talk about, or give a review, or Google, or talk about and say that. So one of the things I do is every day I pick a number, depending on how busy my day is, of how many people that I'm going to be a number two for, whether I do a shout out, whether I talk in a meeting or something I highlight. And again, it has to be people that are real. Like I don't make it up. It's just if someone attend a meeting with me, I don't do it. It's people that I've really experienced that. But what's cool about that is that's come back to me tenfold. Is all the time I'll have people just shout me out who will shout me out even though they've never met me, and they'll say, "I've heard that he does this. I heard he does this and does this." And so all those type of reviews come back because I'm open with who I'm shouting out, or who I'm talking about, or who I'm endorsing. And so we have a big saying, we have a big peace sign on the wall, and we talk about being number two in our office all the time.
I love it. I love it. I think, me and my business partner joke all the time, and and he's like, "You're Batman." I was like, "No, you're Batman. I'm Robin."
Yeah, yeah,
It's hard. It's hard being Batman, and I think most people are not necessarily Batman in their business. They're Robin, and you can have an incredible life, an incredible business, being number two and partnering, with people, through the process. I feel like I've studied so much with so many things over the years, but just to imagine to run my agency, doing it all myself, even at a small level, it wouldn't be as fulfilling for me, and really the thing where I think everyone needs to get much better at, is the marketing. The thing that I teach our clients is those who make the leads make the rules. If you want to make the own rules in your life, then you need to start making your own leads. And if you don't like how your boss is treating you, business partner, blah, 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 whatever, whoever it is, right, then you need to start making your own leads, which means you got to get way better at it. Right. Yeah. And so, it's an art, and you do a lot of guerrilla marketing. People don't really know what guerrilla marketing is. How would you explain guerrilla marketing?
Yeah, it's doing something that's unexpected. And I'll tell you, we published this book we call the Smart Plan. And all it does is it goes through and shows you all the national days for every day. And every day has a minimum of 5 national days on it of different, could be National Astronaut Day or National Peach Smoothie Day or whatever. Sure. But put it out and we show people. And part of that is you need, instead of come across salesy all the time, if you have some reason that you're talking about something, it works it better. Now, I'll tell you, for when I was at the grocery stores, Super Bowl is the second biggest food holiday. So more people, people stock up there. They do it second to Thanksgiving. It beats out Christmas, Easter. And so you want to be right. So as that was coming up one year, I was thinking, how can I get just a little bit more than our fair share, right? What can I do? But all the marketing looked the same. It was all a football field, a football, there. And, whether my football pitchers were better than the competition. And I got looking, and the national day, that Saturday before the Sunday, was National Kazoo Day. So what we did is we did Kazooper Bowl. First 200 kids get a free kazoo. Now, people say that's kind of corny, but that was a company-wide thing. We were up 34%, which is $43 million in one week, in one of the biggest weeks. Wow. I'll be a little bit corny for 43 million, but it made us a little bit different than all, because we still had Super Bowl involved there, but with the kazoos, and we had fun with it. We said, hey, you can't play them in the store, but on your ride home, go right ahead, play it all you want, with your mom and dad. But love it. Little things like that, make such a difference. So we help a lot of people come up with like themes or ideas like that hold true, that stand out different. So many times, like in October, people say, well, I'll do something fun with Halloween, but most of the competitors are doing the same thing. And like we had a car repair shops that last year, we decided that that's the second biggest month for breast cancer awareness. And they're basically targeting a lot of women to bring their cars there. So we did this huge breast cancer awareness through October. It's got them way more business than they ever got just doing another Frankenstein or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah,
I love it.
come up
I
with
love
ideas
it.
like that.
In wrapping up the podcast, what do you think is the biggest mistake that you see people making on a day-to-day basis with their marketing?
They forget to strategize. They want to hurry and make money, and so they just whatever they hear come along, let's throw money here, throw money there.
Yeah.
Where they just take a step back and strategize. All right, who really is my customer, and what are they looking for, and then put the plan around that, and everything down to the vehicle you use, everything should be based on who your targets are. And so many people I come in they'll come in and tell me, hey, I got this free, I got this over here. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't even go close to who you're targeting. You know, I had some people come in with this thing that's great for millennials. And he said, I got a free page in the local newspaper. I'm like, yeah, it's not going to help you. It's, you know, most of the newspapers, only about 20% of the population take that in our market. And they're all 65 plus, you know?
Yeah, they start throwing stuff up against the wall, hoping it will stick,
Yeah.
right? With all
Yeah.
these little tactics and not understanding that, there's people like us that have already done that for a lot of years and we've thrown it, but we understand that there's a strategy to throwing it up against the wall.
Yeah.
And going back to my definition of marketing is giving is pre-appreciating your clients. It's giving value before they've paid you anything. And going back to the emotional connection, if you can help someone and you could put out that karma in advance, and it doesn't happen with everyone, it's kind of like planting seeds. If you keep planting seeds, you keep watering, and you keep giving light to that, your crop is absolutely going to grow,
Yeah.
So love everything you're talking about. How do people follow you?
So just the letter R, marketing, DEPT. That's our website, or you can just check me out. I don't know how to spell Rich, so it's REICH. Steve R like Reich out there, but yeah, just love to talk to anybody, and we love to give ideas out for free all the time.
Love it. Okay, guys, go follow them. All
Yeah.
right. If you feel like this can benefit someone, please share it. All right. Give me a review. I don't care if it's a 5-star. I just want a review on what you're thinking about the podcast. Be inspired in what you're doing. You have a story, get it out there. Okay. And we'll talk again next time. Good talk.
Hey, you have a story to share with the world, which means you need to get on more life stages. We have a jam-packed schedule in 2024 full of events, including our biggest event year to date, Brand X. Go to benextgen.com/speak. Again, benextgen.com/speak. Or you could just click the link in the description. Fill out an application. Our team will reach out to you and show you how our speaker partnership works. Get on a stage, get video, blow up your brand, blow up your business. Let's go.